Hello and welcome. Tonight, APC clears uncertainty over its leadership as party's National Chairman Abdullahi Adamu and National Secretary Iola Omishore resign their positions. Party NWC suspends NEC meeting. Nigerian Customs Service intercepts 31 rifles in 3 locations in the southwest as troops of the Nigerian Army bust syndicate conveying ammunition to the southeast. Group of lawyers filed contempt suit against the DSS Director General over alleged violation of court judgments and orders directing the release of suspended CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele from detention. And President Putin vows response, blames Ukraine for attacking the Crimea Bridge, which links the occupied peninsula to Russia.
On business news tonight, Lagos becomes the most expensive state in Nigeria as country's headline inflation climbs higher to 22.79% in June, according to latest report coming from the National Bureau of Statistics.
On sports news tonight, Inter Miami honors hail Lionel Messi as America's number 10 during his celebratory unveiling event at Miami's 20,000 capacity stadium.
From Abuja, the nation's capital, federal government confirms the first anthrax case in the country, says disease was detected in a farm in the Suleja area of Niger State.
The uncertainty and drama over the fate of the National Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Abdullahi Adamu, has finally come to an end. This follows the announcement of his resignation today by the National Working Committee after its emergency meeting in Abuja. The acting National Chairman, Senator Abubakar Kyari, also announced the resignation of the party's National Secretary, Senator Iola Omishore.
It was a calm atmosphere at the headquarters of the All Progressives Congress in Abuja. Members of the party's National Working Committee converged for their meeting, which took place behind closed doors.
It won't take 30 minutes now.
The All Progressives Congress, since inception in 2013, has had 5 chairmen, 2 of them Mr. Bisi Akonde and Mr. May Malabuni in interim capacity. Of the 3 that were duly elected between 2014 and 2023, only Mr. Oyegun Odigie completed 1 tenure, as former Governor Adams Oshomole and Senator Abdullahi Adamu had their tenures truncated. After the meeting, which lasted almost 4 hours behind closed doors, the Deputy National Chairman North announces the outcome of the meeting.
NWC wishes to inform you the resignation of the National Chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, CON, and that of the National Secretary, Senator Iola Omishore, CON. And with this development, and according to the Constitution of the All Progressive Congress, APC, it is now incumbent on my humble self, Senator Abubakar Kyari, as the Deputy National Chairman, North, to assume the office of the acting National Chairman of the All Progressive Congress, APC.
The acting National Chairman makes further announcements about its National Executive Committee meeting.
The proposed National Caucus meeting for Tuesday, the 18th, July 2023, and the National Executive Committee meeting of the All Progressive Congress slated for Wednesday, 19th July 2023, has hereby been postponed.
17 members of the National Working Committee were in attendance as the National Publicity Secretary, Mr. Felix Moka, and the National Women Leader, Mrs. Betty Edu, were excused after due permission.
Meanwhile, a former legal advisor to the APC, Mr. Muiz Banere, says there is nowhere in the party's constitution that allows for the chairman's resignation. The Learned Silk adds that the present situation the party finds itself has created a gap in the constitution of the party and are done by inference from other provisions in the constitution. He gave his views on our political program, Politics Today.
There is nowhere in the APC constitution where resignation is contemplated at all. But I know that as at the time I left that office, we proposed some amendment which included that. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened, that it wasn't ultimately passed at the 2022 convention. So as of today, there's no provision for resignation in the APC constitution. So what has happened is somehow extraordinary. Again, that will now leave you with the gap again of what happened immediately the man resigned. Now we have the Deputy National Chairman not taking over the saddle. The only provision you can add on that is where under the functions or powers of the Deputy National Chairman for the South and North, which says that if the chairman is incapable of performing the function of his office or is in his absence, any of the deputies can act. That's the only provision under which they can ride on now, because there's no provision for situations such as resignation in the APC constitution. And who should the resignation itself be addressed to, and what should happen? All those are the lacuna that are apparent in the present APC constitution. So whatever that is happening now is being done by implication or by inference from other provision of the APC constitution.
To the National Assembly, where the House of Representatives has concluded the screening of the service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police appointed by the President. This follows the screening and confirmation of the officers by the upper chamber last week. Chairman of the ad hoc committee that carried out the screening, Honorable Babajimi Benson, asked the armed forces to adhere strictly to the provisions of the Appropriation Act and work in synergy by sharing intelligence. Our correspondent Terry Kumi reports.
An ad hoc committee comprising the leadership of the House of Representatives, excluding the Speaker and Deputy Speaker, has been saddled with the responsibility of screening the service chiefs appointed by President Bola Tinubu.
We will yield the floor to the CDS.
The House chose to set up this committee headed by the Chairman of the House Committee of Defense in the 9th Assembly, as against carrying out the screening exercise during plenary like the Senate.
We must therefore work collectively to deliver more on the goals of this administration, to drastically reduce cases of insecurity across the country. While the House will continue to support this vision through our legislative activities, we shall also embark on rigorous oversight exercises beginning from this screening to ensure that the armed forces of Nigeria adhere strictly to the provisions of all appropriation acts, as will be eventually passed by the National Assembly and assented to by Mr. President.
The Chiefs of Defense and Army Staff have their say, and the screening continues behind closed doors.
I shall build bridges by revitalizing communication channels while deepening synergy in planning and execution of operation within a well-coordinated, joint, and multi-agency environment. The contemporary of security challenges within the armed forces and other security services are currently confronting calls for a more concise approach towards mitigating the issues. In view of this, I am committed to ensuring a conducive and secure environment for the protection of lives and properties for socio-economic activities to thrive. To ensure this, the armed forces under my leadership is poised to fulfilling its constitutional roles in order to defend Nigeria's sovereignty against internal and external aggression. Never in the recent past is the requirement for proactive, adaptive, and inclusive leadership more needed than Nigeria's security environment of today. These requirements are what I intend to meet as the Chief of Army Staff.
The confirmation of the service chiefs or otherwise is likely to happen during Tuesday's plenary, when the ad hoc committee submits its report. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
In other stories, some constitutional and human rights lawyers have filed a contempt case against the Director General of the Department of State Services, Mr. Yusuf Bichi. They went to court for what they described as a violation of multiple judgments and orders of court directing the release of the suspended central bank governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, from the custody of the agency. Led by Mr. Maxwell Okpara, the lawyers are praying the court to commit the Director General of the DSS to prison for the action.
Is this charge we are seeing, is that the terrorism offense they said Emefiele committed? So we have resolved, we are not against whatever thing that they are filing. So, but we felt that Mr. Yusuf Magaji Bichi, the director of the DSS, we want to say enough is enough. We have come to file from 48 against him. We have commenced contempt proceedings against him for deceiving, disobeying court orders. Nigeria is not a banana republic. We have had several directors of DSS. He is not the first one, and this is not going to be the last one. So we have filed it, and we are asking that now that it's obvious that he has a personal issue to settle with Emefiele, he should go and sort it out. He should not use Nigeria. He should not use any sign, any purported offense of terrorism to sort whatever problem he had with Emefiele. Just like as I said, Senator Ahmed Bola Tinubu was one of those that fought for this democracy through NADECO. Now that he's the president, we want to call upon him as a matter of urgency. He should sack the director DSS for embarrassing the entire world, for embarrassing Nigeria. Enough of this. This is one of the persons that made the government of President Muhammad Buhari unpopular.
Meanwhile, a judge of the Federal High Court, Lagos, Justice Nicholas Owebo, has been assigned to hear the federal government's charge against the suspended governor of the central bank, Mr. Godwin Emefiele. The judge has, however, yet to fix a date for his arraignment on a 2-count charge of illegal possession of firearm and ammunition. Our judiciary correspondent, Shola Shoyeli, tells us more.
He was suspended from office as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, on Friday, June 9. Shortly after, the Department of State Services, DSS, arrested him at his home in Lagos, flew him to Abuja, and a day later, on June 10, they confirmed that he was in their custody for investigations. Mr. Godwin Emefiele has since remained in the custody of the secret police. After over a month of holding him without charging him to court, his lawyers and family members who had been denied access to him approached the Federal Capital Territory FCT High Court in Abuja to enforce his fundamental human rights. Following an application by his counsel, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Joseph Daudu, the court on June 16 ordered the DSS to allow the suspended CBN governor access to his lawyers and family, as this is within his fundamental rights. After agreeing to comply with the order, the court at a later date heard the federal government's application challenging its jurisdiction to hear the fundamental rights enforcement suit. In his ruling on the matter, Justice Hamza Muazu ordered the DSS to release or charge the suspended CBN governor to court within 1 week.
7 days have been given to the DSS to either charge him to court or release him on administrative bail. We expect him to be released on administrative bail today as we speak.
Hours after the court order, the DSS spokesman, Mr. Peter Afunaya, said Emefiele had been charged to court in compliance with the order. Meanwhile, another judge of the FCT High Court in Abuja last week Friday, Justice Bello Kawu, declared the arrest and detention of Mr. Emefiele by the DSS as illegal. Channels Television obtained a copy of the 2-count charge bordering on illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, contrary to the provisions of the Firearms Act 2004, as filed by the federal government against the suspended CBN governor. The offense carries a punishment of 5 years imprisonment. The charge has now been assigned to Justice Nicholas Owebo of the Federal High Court, Lagos, who is yet to fix a date for the hearing. Meanwhile, Mr. Emefiele has filed a bail application, insisting that the offense is ordinarily bailable and he is not a flight risk. In the meantime, there are no indications that Mr. Emefiele has been flown back to Lagos, where he is expected to stand trial. Shola Shoyeli, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, former governors of Bauchi and Kano states, Isa Yuguda and Abdullahi Ganduje, lead talks with cattle herders associations to resolve the lingering farmer-herder crisis in the country. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live from Channels Television. A reminder of our main stories. APC clears uncertainty over its leadership as party's national chairman, Abdullahi Adamu, and national secretary, Iyola Omishore, resigned their positions. The party's NWC suspends NEC meeting. Nigerian Customs Service intercepts 31 rifles in 3 locations in the southwest as troops of the Nigerian Army bust syndicate conveying ammunition to the southeast. Group of lawyers filed contempt suit against the DSS Director General over alleged violation of court judgments and orders directing the release from detention of the suspended CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele. And President Vladimir Putin vows response, blames Ukraine for attacking the Crimea Bridge, which links the occupied peninsula to Russia. The president has returned to the nation's capital of Abuja from Nairobi, Kenya, where he participated in the 5th mid-year coordination meeting of the African Union, AU. President Bola Tinubu arrived at the presidential wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport around 4:20 p.m. today. He attended the meeting in his capacity as the chairman of the Authority of the Heads of State and Government of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. While in Nairobi, the president joined other African leaders to draft a declaration based on deliberations and conclusions arrived at the meeting, reaffirming Africa's unity and strength, firmly rejecting any notion of a new scramble for Africa. The Nigerian Customs Service has intercepted 31 assorted rifles in 3 locations in the southwest in the first 2 weeks of this month. The Acting Controller General of Customs, Mr. Wale Adeni, explains that some of the rifles and live ammunition were concealed in bags of charcoal and drums. Mr. Adeni stated this at a press briefing in Lagos.
Illicit arms obtained by non-state actors have boosted the proliferation of small arms and ammunition across the country. This accounts for the increase in violent kidnappings, robberies, and mass killings in our society. Let me at this point state that we have re-strategized our operations while our officers have raised their level of professionalism, and they have keyed into the mantra of renewed hope aimed at facilitating legitimate trade. In doing this, we will be assuring all our compliant traders and importers that they will have nothing to fear. We have rejected new tactics to tackle the economic and security menace caused by recalcitrant importers and their agents. The services, human resources, and logistics are collectively harnessed to combat and prevent economic sabotage. I implore importers and agents to be patriotic by making sincere declarations and be properly guided by the import and export prohibition list. I also urge the public to see security as a collective responsibility. We will appreciate information of illegal importation and cross-border movement of dangerous weapons used to create mayhem in our nation.
Meanwhile, troops of the Nigerian Army have intercepted an international ammunition smuggling syndicate while transporting a truckload of smuggled ammunition to Anambra State. The troops, who acted on actionable intelligence, conducted a rigorous stop-and-search operation along Agility Owode Road in Yewa North Local Government area of Ogun State and uncovered the illegal ammunition in a truck on Saturday, July the 15th. The truck was loaded with 720 packets of Red Star cartridges, totaling 18,000 cartridges, and an additional 250 packets of live black cartridges, totaling 2,500 cartridges of the same caliber. According to the Army, the suspects have been taken into custody and are helping with investigations. The ammunition was said to have been imported from Mali through the Idiroko border. So let's head to the nation's capital now, where Linda Akigbe is standing by to give us the very latest from our Abuja studios. Hello, Linda. Great to see you again.
Hello, Ayotunde. Great to see you too. Now, staying with security issues, former governor of Bauchi State, Isa Yuguda, and immediate past governor of Kano State, Abdullahi Ganduje, are leading a coalition of cattle herders associations in a meeting on how to resolve the lingering farmer herder crisis in Nigeria. The meeting, which held in Abuja, had in attendance leaders of 16 cattle herders associations, including members of the Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria.
at least 16 pastoralist groups come together in a bid to end what they consider unbearable situations that they have to contend with in the course of plying their trade. The former governors of Kano and Bauchi State, Umar Ganduje and Issa Yuguda, are attending this meeting in Abuja. The meeting seeks to find a solution to banditry, kidnapping and the lingering conflict between farmers and herders, which they say has negatively affected the image of pastoralists in Nigeria.
These clashes graduated into cattle rustling, kidnapping, banditry. So we have to face these challenges, and the best way is to come together and agree that there must be peace and stability.
The former governor of Bauchi State, Mr. Yuguda, highlights the challenges confronting the cattle herders, just as he prefers solution to the problems of banditry and kidnapping.
In the bushes today, we have kidnappers. A substantial percentage of them are Fulani boys. But all Nigerians are involved. The kinetic approach to the present crisis involving the full pay today, it cannot fly. A non-kinetic approach has to be adopted.
The consensus at this meeting is that there is an urgent need for livestock farming reforms in order to protect the farmers and the herders.
The pastoralists are at the receiving end of all these advices. So, meeting here as a coalition will give us a very strong force to advance our cause to the outside world.
We are looking for sustainability in the reforms of livestock production, and that will eventually lead to a harmonious coexistence between farmers and herdsmen. The herdsmen are born again, and they ensure that as their life is important, the life of farmers is also important.
This meeting is expected to come up with a resolution that will be forwarded to President Tinubu with suggestions on how to address the lingering problems between the farmers and the herders, as well as banditry and kidnapping in northern Nigeria.
To health matters, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development has confirmed one case of anthrax disease in a mixed livestock farm in Niger State. This is the first animal case to be reported in Nigeria since the beginning of the West Africa outbreak in Ghana in June 2023. According to a joint statement of the Chief Veterinary Officer of Nigeria, the Director General, Federal Ministry of Agriculture, as well as the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, the sudden deaths of livestock in the farm with 8 mortality was reported. The case was said to be in a multi-species animal farm comprising cattle, sheep and goats located at Gajiri in Suleja local government area of Niger State. Consequently, a rapid response team made up of federal and state health professionals visited the farm to conduct preliminary investigations and collected samples from the sick animals, which were eventually confirmed to be anthrax. In Abia State, the Commissioner for Health, Dr. Ngozi Okoronkwo, has dismissed as untrue and unfounded reports making the rounds that the Abia State government has sacked all medical doctors in the state public service. According to the Commissioner, the government has no intention of sacking or disengaging any doctor or health personnel currently working to support ongoing efforts at reviving the health sector in the state. She also maintains that no doctor has been asked to submit fresh expression of interest. Dr. Okoronkwo urged the doctors and members of the general public to ignore the rumor and support the several initiatives of the government at driving holistic healthcare delivery in the state. In other stories, the European Union says its relationship with Nigeria remains sacrosanct despite the mixed reactions to the EU Election Observer report on the 2023 general elections. The EU ambassador to Nigeria and ECOWAS, Ms. Samuela Isopi, stated this at a press briefing today in Abuja. She also notes that the EU will continue to maintain a mutually beneficial relationship with the largest democracy in Africa.
It's not the first time that the Nigerian government, that the Nigerian election body invites the European Union to deploy an independent election observation mission. Actually, the European Union has been consistently and constantly deployed election observation mission since 1999. I think this was the 7th one. And every time the missions have offered the report, and this is the objective, the purpose of those missions, is to offer reports about what happened, and more importantly, to offer recommendations. No, we don't think that there will be any impact. We have very strong and good relations with the country. There were already engagements between European Union institutions, European Union leaders, and the new administration. There was a phone call after the inauguration between the President of the European Council, which is the man over there, the guy over there, between the two ladies, among the two ladies. He's the President of the European Council, Charles Michel. He's the former Prime Minister of Belgium, who represented the European system, the European Union member states, heads of state and government. So there was a very polite, interesting phone call during which the two leaders discussed the areas of cooperation. And I think the message that was given is that really the European Union and its member states want to not only to continue to work with Nigeria, but really boost and step up our cooperation in Nigeria in many, many areas. We are in discussion, for visits, contacts, consultations. We continue our activity, and we don't think that this will have.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Lagos becomes the most expensive state in the country as the nation's headline inflation climbs higher to 22.79% in June, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. That's some business news. Join us again.
Welcome back. For the first time since subsidy was removed, oil marketers in Nigeria have begun the first shipment of premium motor spirit, PMS, into Nigeria. At a late evening meeting held in Lagos between the Nigeria Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority and oil marketers, the authority chief executive of NMDPRA, Mr. Farouk Ahmed, says 56 marketers have signaled interest in playing in the liberalized downstream oil sector. According to Mr. Ahmed, the numbers of players now willing to import is indicative of a free market that will reduce the monopoly of the NNPC in product importation.
If you recall, on May 29th, Mr. President, of course, mentioned that subsidy has gone. And we encourage all the marketing companies who are interested in importing to come forward for licensing to import. So this meeting I just called to thank some of them that actually took that offer. We have now about 56 marketing companies that applied for and obtained license to import premium motor spirit. And out of those, about 10 indicated their ability to import in the third quarter, which is July, August, and September. And out of those 10, again, 3 of them already have landed cargoes. Prudent Energy, AOM Shafa, and Emadeb. And others, like 11 PLCs and others, are also indicating their interest to import in August and September. So it's just actually to call for this meeting to encourage them to import so that they can displace, in a way, NNPC's dominance in the market, because this market is open for all to compete, and we're going to encourage all the marketing companies to come in and conduct their normal businesses in this arena. We are working with FCCPC in terms of consumer protection so that no marketer takes advantage. But most importantly, what we are focusing on is, like you said, the quality of products coming in, so that it does not affect any motorist or any individuals in terms of the damage to the equipment.
The River State government has flagged off the construction of the Port Harcourt Ring Road, which Governor Siminalayi Fubara says will attract development and investments to remote parts of the state. The 50.15-kilometer road will cut across 6 local government areas at the cost of 200 billion naira. Beyond connecting the localities, Governor Fubara says the project will unite the people and help in expanding opportunities. Present at the ceremony were former governors Peter Odili and Nyesom Wike.
It's a memorable day for the Rivers State government as Governor Siminalayi Fubara brings together top political leaders, including past governors Nyesom Wike and Peter Odili, for the flag-off of his first project, the historic Port Harcourt Ring Road.
8 kilometers of flyovers.
It's a 50.15-kilometer road that begins from the venue of this flag-off ceremony at the UTC junction in Port Harcourt, the River State capital, and cuts across several communities in 6 local government areas, incorporating flyovers and a river crossing bridge.
This project crisscrosses 6 local government areas. This 50.15 kilometers, further broken down, has 45 kilometers of dual carriageway, 4.8 kilometers of flyovers. The flyover is also dual carriage, and then 350 meters river crossing bridge.
The contract for this project was awarded last week at the cost of 200 billion naira to Julius Berger Nigeria Limited.
This infrastructure project represents a significant step forward in our collective journey towards progress and prosperity.
For Governor Fubara, the project is not about connecting the localities alone, but connecting the people and opportunities.
This project is one project that will bring more development to our dear state. We're talking about the expansion and the decongestion of Faga and Obiakpo. This project will bring new city into Port Harcourt, into River State. After this project, people will be living far off. Accessibility into the town will be at ease.
The special guest at the ceremony is the immediate past governor, Mr. Nyesom Wike, who commends the courage and foresight of his successor to begin the implementation of the development plan he inherited. He advises the governor to remain focused.
Before I left office, the last Executive Council meeting, which he himself attended with his deputy, the Executive Council approved that this ring road should be constructed by the next administration, and we thank God Almighty that he has shown that he has the capacity, he has the will to carry out this project.
He then flags off the construction of the ring road. The 50.1-kilometer Port Harcourt Ring Road is expected to be completed in 3 years, with the government hoping that it will help develop new cities and attract investments to remote areas.
It's time for business news now with Anne Waldo.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Ayatunde. Hello and welcome to Business News. We begin with Nigeria's economy. And in line with the forecast by economic think tank Financial Derivatives Company, Nigeria's headline inflation rate has climbed marginally higher to 22.79% in the month of June, and that's the highest in 18 months. The official figure released today by the National Bureau of Statistics, which comes amid the removal of the fuel subsidy by government, represents a 0.38% point rise when you compare it to 22.41% rate recorded in the month of May. But the major contributor to the inflationary pressure was a higher food price, basic food, increase in the cost of transportation, especially in Lagos, which recorded 25.7% rise in its inflation rate, overtaking Ondo, Rivers, and Kogi states. All eyes are now set on the central bank's decision at the upcoming monetary policy meeting, which is set to hold on Monday and on Tuesday next week. Nigeria's non-oil sector recorded a slight decrease in the value of exports to $2.54 billion, representing 0.09% dip in the first half of this year. The Executive Director and CEO of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, Ezra Yakusak, who made this known to journalists in Abuja, blamed the transition to a new government and changes in global market conditions as reasons for the slight dip. According to him, a total number of 224 different products were exported in the period under review, ranging from manufacturing, semi-processed, solid minerals to agricultural commodities. Let's head to the market now, where it began the week on a positive note. So the color is green today. 41 gainers were against 27 losers. Laddie Williams has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, the third trading week of the month kicks off in the green. Not bad from yesterday's last week's loss. They're losing that 65K level. We're back now in the green, 6.60%, 0.60% up, 62,943 points. Market cap sitting at 34.273 trillion naira. Let's look at the sectoral performance now. Yeah, we see oil and gas down 0.62%, but the banking counter shining again after that big drop. Last week, we see it recovered but from the 14.32% drop. We also see FBNH also back up after sell-offs last week, and the Fugaz taking the banking counter up 7.57%. And we see the bulls dominating today's session on the exchange. And for the gainers counter now, we see Dow Communications is up about 10%, 33 kobo. After that big jump from last week, did rise about 50% last week, continuing that bullish run we saw. Fidelity Bank also up 10%, 7.37 kobo. Unilever, that's also up 10% at 15.95 kobo. Let's look at the losers counter now. We see SFS, Real Estate Investment Trust, that's down about 10% at 67 kobo. Veritas Capital, 27 kobo, down 10%. So not a bad way to start the week, even though we got that inflation data for June at 22.79%. Not as hot as expected, but let's see what the MPC does in its next meeting. Will it be a hike or a pause? We'll find out. Well, that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you, Anne.
And that's business news for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawado. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Anne. Coming up next on the news at 10, President Vladimir Putin vows response, blames Ukraine for attacking the Crimea bridge, which links the occupied peninsula to Russia. Please stay with us. Welcome back. There's been rising temperatures across Europe, in parts of the United States, and floods in Asia. Indeed, much of Europe is said to be experiencing extreme heat, with temperatures said to be heading higher than the 40s. Interestingly, China is also experiencing both heat and the floods. It's a major problem in other parts of Asia as well, for India, Pakistan, and the latest tragedy in South Korea. Here's Simon Puzi with other international stories in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Russia has blamed Ukraine for attacking the Crimea bridge, which links the occupied peninsula to Russia. It also claims the attack involved the direct participation of American and British intelligence and politicians. The attack happened early on Monday morning, killing 2 Russians who were traveling in their car. Last October, a huge explosion on the same bridge crippled its road and rail lines. The Kerch Bridge is a key link for Moscow to reinforce its troops in Crimea and the southern Kherson region. The EU's foreign policy chief and EU Council president have both condemned Russia's announcement that it would not extend the Black Sea grain deal. Russia halted participation on Monday in the year-old UN-brokered deal, which lets Ukraine export grain through the Black Sea just hours after the blast on Russia's bridge to Crimea. The Kremlin said there was no link between the attack and its decision to suspend the grain deal, which it says must also ease restrictions on Russian food and fertilizer exports.
I am so sorry to say that today Russia has refused to prolong this deal. And this is something very serious that will create a lot of troubles to many people around the world. We, from our side, we will do everything we can through our solidarity lanes in order to make available the Ukrainian grain for the people who eat from it. And I have to blame Russia for this decision, completely unjustified, weaponizing the hunger of the people.
Russia's announcement has sent a shiver through some of the world's poorest countries, many of which are already reeling from inflation, natural disasters and conflict. The UN World Food Programme has also turned heavily to Ukrainian grains to feed people in countries suffering from conflicts and extreme weather, including Somalia, Yemen and Afghanistan.
More than 600,000 tons of food was procured by WFP and moved to countries that were in dire food need in Afghanistan, in Yemen, Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya, Sudan. And I think non-extension of the Black Sea grain deal would mean that there would be less availability of food grains in the global food market. There will be less availability of food grain for actors such as the World Food Programme to be able to procure food at the right price, to support the humanitarian needs for countries that are reeling through multiple humanitarian crises.
Much of southern Europe is experiencing extreme heat, with warnings that record highs could be reached in some places. The temperature could reach 47 degrees in Sardinia this week. The hottest temperature ever recorded in Europe was 48.8 Celsius in Sicily in August 2021. Italian authorities have issued red alerts for 16 cities, while a wildfire on the Canary Islands of La Palma has forced the evacuation of 4,000 people. China has also been experiencing heat extremes and provisionally recorded its highest temperature ever of 52.2 degrees Celsius in Xinjiang in the northwest on Sunday. At least 40 people in South Korea have died after a weekend of severe rains caused widespread flooding and landslides across the country. At least 13 people died in their vehicles after becoming trapped by floodwaters in a tunnel where emergency workers are still working. The full death toll is still unknown. The disasters have prompted calls from President Yoon Suk-yeol to overhaul how the country combats extreme weather arising from climate change. A jumper worn by Britain's late Princess Diana and depicting a black sheep is headed for auction later this summer with a price estimate of up to $80,000. Diana first wore the red jumper, which depicts a lone black sheep among rows of white sheep, to watch then Prince Charles play in a polo game in June 1981, a month before they got married. And police have been baffled by a mysterious unidentified dome that washed up on a West Australian beach. The giant metal object was found by locals at Green Head Beach, about 250 kilometres north of Perth. State and federal authorities are investigating the item, which is not currently believed to be from a commercial aircraft. It is being treated as hazardous, and police have requested people to keep a safe distance. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
It's time for sports, and let's begin from home, where the president of the Nigeria Football Federation, NFL, Ibrahim Gusau, has inaugurated the newly constituted boards of the National League, Nigeria Nationwide League One, and the Nigeria Women Football League in Abuja. The NFL president chaired as the chairman and members of the board to come up with plans and marketing strategies that will take Nigeria's domestic football to new heights.
I would like to introduce to you your number 10, Inter Miami's number 10, America's number 10, the best number 10 in the world, Lionel Andres Messi.
It rained on his parade, but Lionel Messi greeted his Inter Miami fans and was hailed by the club's owner as he headed there as America's number 10 at the damp but celebratory unveiling event earlier this morning. Miami's 20,000 capacity stadium was close to full despite huge thunderstorm just before the event to celebrate the arrival of the Argentine World Cup winner was due to begin. After joining Barcelona, Iker Gundogan says he is relishing the opportunity to prove himself in a different league, in a different country. The 32-year-old German midfielder has agreed to a 2-year deal with the option for a year extension and a release clause of €400 million, fresh from his previous our club as captain of the treble-winning Manchester City. And that's it on sports. Ayotunde is back to you.
Many thanks, Jeffrey. And the main news again. The National Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, and National Secretary, Senator Iyola Omishori, today resigned their positions just as the party's National Working Committee suspended its NEC meeting. That's the news at 10. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. From all of us here, to have a good night.